Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the tension in the air before a single word was spoken? Have you ever been watching a film and felt the emotion of a fictional character so deeply that it physically sat in your chest? Have you ever needed to leave a crowded place, not because something was wrong with you, but because everything felt like too much all at once? If you answered yes to even one of those questions, then stay with me. Because what I am about to share with you is not motivational fluff. This is grounded in decades of psychological research, peer-reviewed neuroscience, and a growing field of study that is completely changing how we understand the human brain. And more importantly, it is going to completely change how you understand yourself. Most people who are deeply sensitive have spent their entire lives receiving the same message from the world around them. Toughen up. Stop overthinking. You are too emotional. Stop taking everything so personally. And so, quietly and painfully, they began to believe it. They began to treat their sensitivity like a flaw, like something broken inside them that needed to be fixed or hidden. But here is the truth that neuroscience has been trying to tell you. You were never broken. You were just running on a different operating system. And once you understand how that system works, you will stop apologizing for it and start leveraging it. In 1996, psychologist Dr. Elaine Aron introduced a concept to the scientific world that would go on to reshape developmental psychology. She called it sensory processing sensitivity, and the people who possess it, she called highly sensitive persons, or HSPs. Now, before you dismiss this as a pop psychology label, understand this. Dr. Aron's research, along with hundreds of follow-up studies, has confirmed that sensory processing sensitivity is a measurable, biologically real trait. It is not a disorder. It is not anxiety, although it can sometimes feel like it. It is not introversion, although there is some overlap. It is a distinct neurological wiring that appears in approximately 15 to 20% of the human population. And here is the part that changes everything. This same trait has been observed in over 100 animal species, from fruit flies to chimpanzees, from deer to domestic cats. In every species studied, a percentage of the population consistently demonstrates a heightened sensitivity to environmental stimuli. Evolutionary biologists have concluded that this is not an accident. This trait has survived millions of years of natural selection, which means evolution decided it was worth keeping. And evolution is not sentimental. It does not keep what does not serve a purpose. So the real question is not what is wrong with sensitive people. The real question is, what is it that sensitive people are designed to do that the rest of the population cannot? To answer that, we need to look inside the brain, because this is where the science gets genuinely fascinating. In 2014, a landmark neuroimaging study led by Dr. Bianca Acevedo at the University of California, Santa Barbara used functional MRI scanning to examine the brains of highly sensitive persons compared to non-sensitive individuals. The results were striking. When HSPs were shown photographs of people expressing emotion, whether happiness, sadness, fear, or pain, their brains showed dramatically higher activation in multiple key regions. These included the insula, which is responsible for self-awareness and the processing of emotional states. They included the mirror neuron system, which governs empathy and social cognition. And they included the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex decision-making and deep cognitive processing. In plain language, when a sensitive person observes another human being feeling something, their brain does not just register that information. It simulates it. It physically recreates the emotional experience inside itself. This is not imagination. This is not weakness. This is a neurological process called affective resonance, and it is one of the most sophisticated functions the human brain is capable of. Think about what that means in practical terms. When you walk into a conversation and you instinctively know that something is off, that is not paranoia. That is your brain reading dozens of micro signals simultaneously. Subtle changes in facial muscle tension, micro variations in tone and pitch, shifts in body posture that happen in fractions of a second. Your brain is processing all of it in parallel and delivering you a conclusion that other people simply cannot access. Now let us talk about a specific neurological feature called latent inhibition. This is the brain's filtering mechanism. Its job is to screen out stimuli that the brain has previously judged as unimportant or irrelevant, so that you are not overwhelmed by constant input. In most people, latent inhibition works efficiently. The brain quietly decides what to pay attention to and what to ignore. The hum of an air conditioner disappears into the background. A stranger's expression at the edge of your vision gets filtered out. The emotional atmosphere of a room gets filed under irrelevant and bypassed. But research has consistently shown that highly sensitive persons demonstrate what is called reduced latent inhibition. The filtering system is turned down. More information gets through. More stimuli are processed consciously. More of the environment, both external and emotional, is registered in real time. Harvard psychologist Dr. Shelley Carson conducted research connecting reduced latent inhibition to both creative achievement and cognitive overload. Her findings suggest that when reduced latent inhibition is paired with high intelligence and strong working memory capacity, it becomes a significant driver of creative thinking and problem solving. The brain that cannot filter everything out is also the brain that notices what nobody else noticed. It finds the connection everyone else missed. It identifies the risk before anyone else saw it coming. The same mechanism that makes you feel overwhelmed in a noisy, chaotic environment is the same mechanism that makes you extraordinarily perceptive in a quieter one. It is not a flaw. It is a feature operating at the wrong setting for the wrong environment. This brings us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of the sensitive mind: the tendency to pause before acting, to think carefully before speaking, to replay conversations, to consider outcomes that other people never even imagined. People around you may have called this overthinking. They may have called it indecisiveness or hesitation. But what is actually happening in your brain during those moments is something researchers describe as deep semantic processing. A 2010 study published in Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience by Dr. Jadzia Jadzielovich found that HSPs spend significantly more time processing experiences at a conceptual level. Where a non-sensitive person receives information and responds to it at face value, a highly sensitive person's brain automatically begins linking that information to prior memories, to emotional context, to potential future consequences, and to deeper layers of meaning. This is not overthinking. This is comprehensive thinking. It is the neurological equivalent of running a full system diagnostic before making a move. Chess grandmasters do this. Surgeons do this. Crisis negotiators do this. The ability to pause, integrate, and then respond is not a weakness in cognitive function. It is a mark of advanced cognitive function. The problem is not the pause. The problem is that modern culture has mistaken speed for intelligence, and sensitive people have internalized that mistake. Now I want to talk about something that will reframe every difficult moment you have ever had because of your sensitivity. Researchers in developmental psychology have identified two types of people when it comes to environmental responsiveness. They use a botanical metaphor, originally proposed by researchers W. Thomas Boyce and Bruce Ellis, called the orchid and dandelion hypothesis. It was later expanded upon by Swedish researcher Michael Plus into a broader framework called differential susceptibility. Here is the core idea. Most people are like dandelions. Dandelions are biologically built for resilience. They can grow in a crack in a pavement in poor soil with minimal care. They are not particularly affected by whether their environment is harsh or nurturing. They survive regardless. But a smaller portion of the population is built more like orchids. In a harsh environment, orchids do not just struggle, they wilt. They are profoundly sensitive to conditions: noise, toxicity, emotional instability, chronic stress. These conditions damage them in ways that a dandelion simply does not experience. And here is where the science becomes genuinely extraordinary. In a well-designed environment, one with adequate support, reduced overstimulation, emotional safety, and conditions that honor the orchid's needs, the orchid does not just survive. It blooms with a complexity, a richness, and a beauty that the dandelion is biologically incapable of producing. This is not a metaphor for personal growth. This is a documented biological reality. Dr. Michael Plous and his colleagues published research demonstrating what they called vantage sensitivity, which is the finding that HSPs are not just more vulnerable to negative environments. They are also significantly more responsive to positive ones. In fact, they benefit more from therapy, from positive relationships, from enriching experiences, and from intentional environments than non-sensitive people do. What this means is that your sensitivity is not a ceiling, it is a multiplier. The right environment does not just help you feel better, it unlocks a level of performance, creativity, and depth that the average person is simply not wired to access. So why does the world feel like it was not designed for you? Because in many ways it was not. And that is not your failure. That is a structural mismatch. Industrial culture, optimized for speed, volume, and constant stimulation, was designed around the neurological majority. The open-plan offices, the 24-hour news cycle, the relentless social media notifications, the culture of busyness worn like a badge of honor. All of it was built for the dandelion. The orchid walks into that environment and immediately begins paying a neurological tax that dandelions do not pay. Every conversation is processed more deeply. Every conflict is felt more physically. Every piece of sensory input that others unconsciously discard is retained and processed. By midday, the sensitive person has already done twice the cognitive labor, and the world cannot understand why they are tired. Understanding this does not mean surrendering to it. It means building intelligently around it. Let us talk about what that actually looks like, because practical application is where understanding becomes transformation. The first and most important shift is environmental. Research consistently shows that HSPs perform best, feel best, and contribute the most in environments that offer controlled stimulation, autonomy, and psychological safety. This means deliberately designing your day with recovery periods built in, not as a luxury, as a biological necessity. Just as elite athletes build rest into their training schedule because they understand that recovery is where growth happens, sensitive people need to understand that quiet time is not laziness. It is system maintenance. The second shift is relational. One of the most important things Dr. Elaine Aron emphasizes in her clinical work is that HSPs need to become highly selective about their relationships. Because you absorb the emotional states of people around you at a physiological level, consistently surrounding yourself with chronically negative, chaotic, or emotionally draining individuals does not just affect your mood. It affects your biology. Cortisol levels rise. The nervous system remains in a state of low-grade activation. Over time, this erodes both physical and cognitive health. This is not elitism. This is environmental hygiene, and for a sensitive person, it is non-negotiable. The third shift is self-narrative. Every sensitive person who spent years being told they were too much has internalized a story about themselves that is factually incorrect. The research does not support weakness. It supports a different kind of strength. The reframing is not just psychological comfort. It is accuracy. The story you tell yourself about who you are will determine how you develop, what risks you take, and how fully you allow yourself to operate. And the accurate story is this: you are not a defective version of the normal person. You are a different kind of person with a different set of capabilities that become extraordinary in the right conditions. There is a reason that a disproportionate number of the world's most impactful artists, therapists, scientists, writers, and leaders identify as highly sensitive. It is not coincidence. Creativity requires the ability to perceive what others miss. Empathic leadership requires the ability to feel what others feel. Scientific breakthroughs require the willingness to pause, process deeply, and resist the urge to accept the obvious answer. The traits that made you feel like an outsider growing up are the same traits that, when consciously developed and strategically deployed, become your most significant competitive advantages. Novelist and researcher Alanis Morissette, autism advocate Temple Grandin, and psychologist Carl Jung are among the many historical and contemporary figures associated with deep sensitivity and heightened perception. These are not people who succeeded despite their sensitivity. Scholars and biographers have argued that in many cases, it was the sensitivity itself that drove the quality and depth of their work. Here is what I want to leave you with. The next time you feel overwhelmed in a crowded space, remember that your brain is processing an amount of information that most people around you are unconscious of. That is not fragility. That is a high-performance system running at full capacity. The next time someone tells you that you are too sensitive, understand that what they are actually saying is that they do not have the cognitive architecture to process the world the way you do. Their experience of reality is genuinely flatter, quieter, less textured. They are not wrong about their experience. They are just describing a different one. And the next time you catch yourself apologizing for needing time alone, for feeling things deeply, for thinking carefully before you speak, I want you to stop. You do not need to apologize for the way your brain works. You need to learn how to work with it. Dr. Elaine Aron spent decades arguing that the most important thing a highly sensitive person can do is move from a state of self-rejection to a state of self-understanding. Not self-indulgence, not using sensitivity as an excuse, but genuine, honest, informed understanding of your own neurology. Because when you understand the system, you can optimize it. When you understand the orchid, you can build the greenhouse. You were not born too sensitive for this world. You were born capable of perceiving a version of this world that most people will never have access to. That is not a burden. That is a gift. And the world, whether it knows it or not, needs you exactly as you are. If this resonated with you, there is one more thing worth exploring. Many highly sensitive people develop a specific relationship with the digital world that psychologists believe is deeply tied to their neurology. They watch, they observe, they engage privately, but they rarely put themselves forward. If that sounds familiar, the next video breaks down the psychology behind that pattern and what it might actually be telling you about your inner world. I will see you there.